Will we see Drax, Nebula, and all the rest after the Guardians of the Galaxy drop their third adventure? And what's the deal with Will Poulter's Adam Warlock? Here's what you need to know about what seems to be James Gunn's final film in the MCU. After a controversial Phase 4, the MCU's Phase 5 kicked off in March with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The film set up some huge stakes for the MCU by introducing the new big bad, Kang the Conqueror. However, after all that multiverse madness, Phase 5 will shift its focus from the quantum realm to nowhere as the saga of Star-Lord continues. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has had a long road to theaters. As everyone knows, director James Gunn was fired from the Guardians movies in 2018 after a politically charged controversy involving old tweets. Of course, he was eventually rehired by Disney. And after joining forces with DC for Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, Gunn was able to focus on getting Drax, Mantis, and Nebula back on the big screen. With all that drama out of the way, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is finally in the can. So when can we expect to see these adorable losers and murderous misfits? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will return in all its action-packed, emotional musical glory on May 5th, 2023. There are 2 trailers for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as of the making of this video, and they promise to bring hilarity, horror, heroics, but mostly heartbreak. The first trailer opens with the Guardians landing on a strange planet filled with humanoid animals. It's possible this could be a combination of 2 different Marvel worlds, Counter-Earth and Half-World. In the comics, Counter-Earth is a place created by the High Evolutionary, while Half-World is a planet filled with anthropomorphic animals, all the result of horrific experiments. After Drax makes a hilarious and disastrous first impression on the locals, we get a glimpse of the Guardians donning 2001: A Space Odyssey-inspired spacesuits, Baby Rocket about to suffer at the hands of the High Evolutionary, and our heroes preparing to make a final stand.
We have been running our whole lives. Pete, I'm done running.
While the emotions are high, the trailer does end with Peter, Quill, and Drax debating the appropriate number of people to kill, showing these guys will always be our lovable criminals. The second trailer, released during Super Bowl 2023, starts off by highlighting the sticky dynamics between Peter and this new Gamora, who has no memory of him whatsoever. As a result, she doesn't exactly reciprocate his affectionate feelings. We also get a much better look at the High Evolutionary and his sinister intentions, which in his mind is to make the perfect society. But his most famous experiment, Rocket Raccoon, has a different take on the situation.
He didn't want to make things perfect. He just hated things the way they are.
It also gives us several new shots of Adam Warlock in combat with the Guardians, going toe-to-toe with Drax in what's sure to be a nail-biter of a battle. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was filmed immediately after Thor: Love and Thunder. Meanwhile, director James Gunn took on an extra project, making the 2022 holiday special at the same time as the movie. Gunn confirmed that the Disney Plus special is part of the Marvel canon, and that it actually sets the stage quite nicely for Volume 3. In Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, we learned several key details about the future of our scrappy band of space pirates. Following their appearance in Love and Thunder, the remaining team of Quill, Drax, Mantis, Nebula, Rocket, and Groot have moved on to continue protecting the galaxy. The Holiday Special revealed that they settled on Nowhere, buying the severed celestial head that once served as a base for Tivan the Collector. In addition to seeing some bizarre gift-giving, which included Mantis and Drax kidnapping Kevin Bacon for Quill, and Nebula stealing Bucky Barnes' vibranium arm for Rocket, we learn they've acquired a new ship. Most importantly of all, though, it's revealed that Mantis and Quill are actually paternal half-siblings. Peter is also still visibly mourning the loss of Gamora, who died at Thanos' hands in Infinity War. And even though an alternate version of her traveled through time to fight alongside them in Endgame, she has no memory of Peter and ditches the Guardians, leaving Star-Lord with a broken heart. We know the Guardians are adjusting to their new lives, with villain-turned-hero Nebula settling into being an official member of Quill's team. According to the official plot synopsis, the Guardians don't get much downtime, as things are upended by the echoes of Rocket's turbulent past. The synopsis goes on, Peter Quill, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, must rally his team around him on a dangerous mission to save Rocket's life. A mission that, if not completed successfully, could quite possibly lead to the end of the Guardians as we know them. This confirms that Volume 3 will be focused on Rocket's backstory, something Gunn has been hinting at for a long time. What element of Rocket's past is coming back to haunt him? All signs point to the villainous High Evolutionary. who's intent on creating a perfect society of evolved beings by whatever torturous means necessary. We also know that Adam Warlock, a powerful figure created by the Guardian's enemy, the High Priestess Aisha, will factor into the story. In short, our heroes are really up against it. Thankfully, they won't be doing it alone, with the past version of Gamora making her return. She's been off leading the Ravagers, filling the power vacuum left after Volume 2. But things could get complicated if Volume 3 sets up a love triangle among Gamora, Peter, and Nebula. This Gamora has no feelings for Peter, while he and Nebula have been growing closer. As you might expect, all the usual suspects are returning to play their respective Guardians roles. Chris Pratt is back as Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, and Zoe Saldana returns as a version of Gamora that doesn't remember her old friends. Bradley Cooper voices Rocket Raccoon, Vin Diesel portrays Groot, and Dave Bautista is back as Drax the Destroyer. Rounding out the old guard, we've got Pom Klementieff as Star-Lord's psychic half-sister Mantis, and Karen Gillan as the dead-eyed assassin with a secret heart of gold, Nebula. And hopefully, Sean Gunn's Kraglin will have figured out how to use Yondu's arrow by now. However, there's a new Guardian in town, Cosmo the Space Dog, the telekinetic talking pooch who first debuted in the holiday special. She'll be voiced by Maria Bakalova, who earned international acclaim and an Oscar nomination for her turn as Tutar Sagdiyev in Borat's subsequent movie film. On the antagonist side of the aisle, we've got Chugudi Iwuji as a High Evolutionary. Iwuji is no stranger to working with James Gunn, as he previously starred as the enigmatic Clemson Murn in HBO Max's Peacemaker series. Will Poulter will portray Adam Warlock, a guy who's going to give the Guardians a pretty hard time. You'll no doubt remember Poulter for his works in projects like Midsommar and Black Mirror. We've also got some pretty big names appearing in smaller side roles. Elizabeth Debicki will be reprising her role as the High Priestess Aisha, the high and mighty creator of Adam Warlock, and Sylvester Stallone returns as Ravager Stakar. Michael Rosenbaum of Smallville fame is coming back as the crystalline Martinex. And we can expect to see Daniela Melchior of the Suicide Squad and Nico Santos of Superstore. Some MCU heroes are inextricably tied with their directors. At this point, it's hard to separate Thor from Taika Waititi. Ryan Coogler is connected to the world of Wakanda, and John Watts shepherded Spider-Man across all 3 films. However, when it comes to a director and their respective super franchise, perhaps no filmmaker has left a bigger impact than James Gunn. He's guided the Guardians from the very beginning, both writing the scripts and directing the films. In addition to the Guardians movies and the holiday special, Gunn is famous for his work at DC, having helmed the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Then, of course, he became the DCU's version of Kevin Feige, along with co-head Peter Safran. Talking about his love of the Guardians franchise, the new DC Studios co-head spoke to Deadline about his last Marvel project, saying, "The reason why I needed to finish this is because I love the character of Rocket more than any character I've ever dealt with before, and I needed to finish his story. And that is what Volume 3 is about. I absolutely needed to do it, and I think we've done it in a spectacular way that I can't wait for people to see." While we know Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be the final Guardians movie with director James Gunn and this lineup of heroes, we don't know which characters will die or if any of them might come back in later MCU movies. However, we do know for a fact there's one actor who won't be returning. Sadly, it looks like Dave Bautista is done with playing Drax. He announced he was officially moving on from the literal minded destroyer in 2021 on Ellen, telling the talk show host, "I'm going to be 54 years old by the time Guardians 3 comes out. The shirtless thing is getting harder and harder for me." While that may indeed be a factor when it comes to moving on from Marvel, Bautista has given other reasons for his departure of a more personal nature. Talking with GQ, Bautista elaborated a bit more on his decision, saying, "I'm so grateful for Drax, I love him, but there's a relief. It wasn't all pleasant, it was hard playing that role. The makeup process was beating me down. And I just don't know if I want Drax to be my legacy. It's a silly performance, and I want to do more dramatic stuff."
Will you make a choice?
Fans can't wait to see what the wrestler turned legit thespian does next, as he's proven he's got serious range with roles in films like Glass Onion, Blade Runner 2049, and Knock at the Cabin. With the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise saying goodbye to Dave Bautista's Drax the Destroyer, it really is the end of an era. Unfortunately, it looks like he might not be the only member of the Guardians who fans will have to bid farewell to. In a cryptic Instagram post which celebrated the end of filming for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 back in May 2022, Scottish actor Karen Gillan teased that Nebula's story might have come to an end. She captioned alongside a photo from the set, "I don't know if Nebula will return beyond this. It's possible that this is her final chapter. And if that's the case, then I just want to say thank you to James Gunn for giving me such an interesting, complex, and fascinating character to play. I have enjoyed this exploration more than any other character I've played. That was one hell of a decade. Thanks for watching. Whether Nebula is going to bite the dust in dramatic fashion remains to be seen, since Gunn's statement is rather ambiguous, but this certainly could be a final foray across the galaxy. Of course, you never really know if someone is gone for good when it comes to the MCU. Just look at characters like Gamora and Loki. So if Gunn is open to it, Nebula may pop up somewhere else in the future. All good things must come to an end, and unfortunately that also applies to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's been quite a journey since this motley crew first appeared on the cinematic scene in 2014. They've introduced us to some groovy mixtapes, saved the world with dancing, fought Kurt Russell, and kidnapped Kevin Bacon. And now in Volume 3, they'll be gearing up for one last adventure as they attempt to save Rocket from his traumatic past. Confirming it will be their last outing, director James Gunn told Deadline, "This is the end for us. The last time people will see this team of Guardians. That implies we may see some of the Guardians again, or perhaps a different iteration of the team will show up at some point. We're assuming that some of the Guardians will simply fly off into the horizon. We're also assuming that some of them will die. From the trailers, it looks like Rocket is going to be in some serious trouble after running across a High Evolutionary. And based on Dave Bautista's comments about moving on from the MCU, it looks like the Destroyer might also be on the chopping block. However, fans shouldn't expect a bloodbath. As James Gunn said at Comic-Con in June 2022, this is the end of that story. I'm sorry, some stories have an end. It doesn't mean everybody dies. Based on the trailers, it seems like the High Evolutionary will be the big bad of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. However, there's another force lurking in the cosmos that might be an even bigger threat, Adam Warlock. We've known he was coming since the post-credits scene of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Early in the film, Rocket gets his greedy little paws on some Analax batteries that belong to the Sovereign, a race of genetically modified gold aliens. Consumed with vengeance, the High Priestess Aisha spends a good chunk of Volume 2 trying to kill the Guardians. And when that doesn't work out, she decides to create the perfect superweapon, Adam Warlock.
More powerful, more beautiful, more capable of destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Talking about his new super being, James Gunn elaborated on Warlock a bit, telling Empire the character's life purpose is a tad more complicated than just wiping out our band of music-loving heroes. That said, according to Gunn, he's definitely not a good guy. What we're seeing is the infant form of Warlock, newly out of the cocoon. And he does not understand life very well. He's basically a baby. So are there any details we can glean from Warlock's comic book background that might help us understand the character going forward? Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Adam Warlock was made to be a perfect being by a group called the Enclave before he was found drifting through space by the High Evolutionary. The space scientists essentially adopted Warlock as his own son, giving him the Soul Stone and sending him down as his representative to counter Earth, a world of the High Evolutionary's making. So it's possible we might see some sort of relationship between the two characters in Volume 3. Additionally, in the comics, Warlock was a huge player in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. He was instrumental in defeating Thanos, and once it was all said and done, he became the wielder of the bejeweled reality-altering glove. For a time, Warlock was also a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, so he has serious comic book connections to all the major players in Volume 3. Will he be a loyal evolutionary acolyte in the film, or will he eventually side with the Guardians? We'll see how that all plays out on May 5th, 2023. The Guardians of the Galaxy franchise just wouldn't be the same without the classic rock soundtracks scoring each of the movies. James Gunn worked on these personally, listening to hundreds of songs before creating the soundtrack for the first movie. It sounds like we can look forward to a third playlist even more powerful than its predecessors. Gunn told Entertainment Weekly, "I worked twice as hard on this soundtrack as I did on both the first two soundtracks combined. Marvel fans got their first taste of the Volume 3 soundtrack in the trailers. The second trailer features Rainbows Since You've Been Gone. The 1976 rock song confirms that Gunn is bringing back more 70s hits to the franchise. But he also confirmed that since the music in this film is coming with the Zune MP3 player which Peter got from Kraglin at the end of Volume 2, rather than his mom's old mixtapes. That would explain why a hit from 1996, In the Meantime by Spacehog, is featured in the first trailer released for the film. Despite having life or death stakes for the characters, Guardians of the Galaxy movies are known to be lighthearted, funny, musically inclined superhero movies. At least they have been so far. According to Gunn, the tone of Volume 3 is going to be completely different from its predecessors. He told Deadline, "It's big, it's so big and dark, and different from what people might be expecting it to be." Dave Bautista told Uproxx that this change in tone is going to make the film great. It's just so much better, so much deeper, it's so much more personal, and there's such a massive inspiring message to this film. Before even watching a full cut of the feature, he confidently told the outlet that it's going to be the best of the three Guardian movies. That's certainly a lot to live up to, but other cast members including Karen Gillan and Pom Klementieff were also moved by the heavier storyline. which we know will center around Rocket but involve the rest of the cast too. Speaking to Digital Spy, Gillen admitted that the script was so evocative that it brought her and Clementieff to tears. "We read it together and we both cried and laughed, but there was full tears. It's incredible. I think it's James's strongest work yet with the Guardians, and it's just brilliant."
Now you're just making it sad.
However, Gillen made sure to mention that there's plenty of that classic Guardians humor in the film too. Chukudi Iwuji plays a High Evolutionary, a powerful villain with virtually unlimited intellectual power. The character comes straight from the pages of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's comic, first appearing in Thor issue 134. Iwuji is excited to bring the character to the big screen. He told Collider with great enthusiasm. He is narcissistic, sociopathic, but very charming. There's something very Shakespearean about him. There's something very emotionally dark about him, and he's a lot of fun on top of all of that. However, his casting was unfortunately met with a cruel, racist backlash from some commenters on social media. One particular Instagram troll criticized his portrayal of the High Evolutionary, insisting the character is supposed to be white. However, director James Gunn took the opportunity to speak out against those comments on Instagram. "I chose the best actor, period, and the best person for the role. I don't give a shit what ethnicity Chukudi Iwuji is, so stop with your racist presumptions on why he was chosen." He also pointed out the character's look from the comic books, adding, "By the way, he's playing a guy who's almost always purple.